Phenomenal morning. Absolutely phenomenal morning. This is your Breakfast with the Brand. I am your host, Sean Raiz, flanked as always by the phenomenal Bobby Jackson. Listen, I think this is going to be a phenomenal piece. Now, I think we had some really good questions yesterday that brought in some really good content and some really good commentary from everybody. So I want you to think before we even begin, as we get into it, as we segue, what is the best quality question that you could possibly ask this morning? How you feeling, Bobby? What's going on over there on your side of the world?
I'm feeling phenomenal as well. A lot of the storms and the weather and stuff has passed, and with every good storm, you see new growth. And that's kind of what I've been seeing, naturally and within my own life, storms coming, going, and just growing. So this morning's been very exciting. I'm looking at the date. It's January 17th already. The 17th already. The year's already underway, and it's really exciting.
How many people stopped already? Right? How many people set goals before the year came in and said, "This is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to be. These are the things that I'm going to accomplish." And already by the 17th day, it's like stalled out. Think about that, guys. Think about that. And then also, listen. This is business heavy, sales centric. Think about your numbers. Think about your numbers. This is like if you were to break every month into quarters. If you were to break every month into quarters, if every week was a quarter of the month, this would be the third quarter. It's the third quarter of January. I promise you guys, when you break your months down, when you break your weeks down, when you break your hours down, you become more efficient. You begin to maximize moments. What happens a lot of times is people are unmindful of the moments, and then they come into the last week of the month, and it's like a hurried rush, a frantic panic to try to get numbers that they could have done the entire month. We squander and waste so many resources by just not being mindful of what we could do. One of the things that I started off early was setting a target and then hitting it before the need became, right? So if you know you got certain things to take care of at the beginning of every month, then you should be crushing it and going insane for your goals in the beginning of the month so you can have the rest of the month for yourself. But if you don't do that, if you say, well, I'll just take it easy, kind of limply, roll over into the new year and roll over into the month, what's going to happen, guys? And I promise you this, I guarantee you this, it happens every time. What's going to happen is January is going to turn into December in the blink of an eye. And you're not going to know what happened. But what will have happened is 2024 will look like 2023. So I want you to think about that as we go to the break. This is the third quarter of January. What if it was the third quarter of the year? There's slow growth and then there's scale. There's incremental growth and then there's exponential growth. What I want to talk to you about is adding a zero to you and experiencing exponential scale. Incremental growth says 1 plus 1 is 2. Exponential growth says 1 plus 0 is 10. Incremental growth says 2 plus 2 is 4. Exponential growth says 5 plus 0 is 50. Guys, listen, when you add a zero to you, you can add a zero to the marketplace. You can add a zero to the value that you bring. So you can add a zero to your family, add a zero to your legacy. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about incremental, we're talking about exponential. I always say that business is a spiritual game. Just imagine when you combine your skills, your values, your abilities, your talents to something bigger than you, something greater than you, something like the power of exponential. That is adding a zero. Add a zero to your competence. Add a zero to your confidence. This is about adding a zero in your life, your value, your industry, and your mission. Let's grow. The reason why I did this and what I do is help leaders to become brands and brand themselves. You train people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. I teach authenticity marketing. If people can take advantage of you, they will in your personal or professional existence.
My biggest takeaway just from day one is you are the brand. I would recommend it to anybody that's really looking to build a personal brand.
Just the brand in general has changed my life. I've grown so much since I've been a part of this.
I see myself in what he does, and I believe in it just as much as I believe in myself.
All right, guys. So you're a part of a process. I don't know if you're aware of it, but everybody here is a part of a process. Listen, guys, if you're watching this 3 years from the day that it was recorded, you're a part of a process. You are a part of a process. It could be 20. So let me say hello to the people watching this in 2027. You're a part of a process. You have to do the hard things first. You have to do the hard things first. This is why we wake up and work out, because it's the hard things first. Most people say, well, I'll get around to that. And it never happens. It never happens. So when you break every day down, like I just said, you break every month down into quarters. What if you broke every day down into quarters? What if you broke every week down? This is why people say Phenomenal Wednesday, because it's the middle, right? It's the middle of the week. So it's like the second quarter of the week. And people are like, oh, relief comes after today. It's all downhill from here. It's all downhill from here. But look at this. Every single day, what if you broke the day down into quarters from 6 to 9, from 9 to 12, from 12 to 3, from 3 to 6? What will you have already gotten done? Like right now, this is how we win days. This is how we win years. This is how we win lives, guys. If you look at a person's life, they'll say the same thing in the first quarter of your life, second quarter of your life, third quarter of your life, fourth quarter of your life. What have you done for the first quarter of the day? What do you plan to have done before the second quarter of the day? Relate that to your week. I guarantee you this. If you choose to win by the second quarter of the day, get all of your calls out early, make all of your contacts early, ask all of the hard questions of yourself and others before the third quarter of the day, your week and your month will be better than you've ever seen.
This is so timely. It's so timely because for me, you guys have probably heard this before. Be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Yep.
You just might get it. So for me, I came into the new year asking to improve my discipline. I was like, I want to improve my discipline. I've got 12 years military experience, Marine Corps. That's been great, but I need more in order to go to the next level. When I tell you everything and the kitchen sink was thrown at my discipline, I am really feeling it right now, as I'm going through this process. And one thing that I will say is I've had to restructure, I've had to restructure my day. I've had to restructure my life. And I think that sometimes we can be afraid to restructure. So don't be afraid to restructure. Don't be afraid to break down your day into quarters. And that's what made me think that thought was, okay, when I look at my day as, say, a 24-hour stint, it's just one whole day, and this is how I do my day. If I break my day down into quarters, though, it can become more like Tetris. I can have the L here, I can have the L here, and I can have the square there. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can move this thing around a bit more. So maybe if you're finding yourself in a tight spot like I'm finding myself, right now, it's like, okay, how am I going to get this done? Break that day up into quarters. Break that day up into quarters and start moving those shapes around until you get something that fits.
Systems and structure. Systems and structure. So this is the truth, right? Time is going to happen anyway, whether you like it or not. Time is going to happen anyway. It's going to be 12 o'clock. It's going to be 9 o'clock, and you'll have to account for the day. This is why some people have off days. We never have off days at the brand. It's always day one, and every day we start on zero. I don't care what came in yesterday. I don't care what anybody did yesterday. You are only as good as your current performance. Team, listen to me. I don't care what the scoreboard was yesterday. I don't care what the numbers look like yesterday. You had a great day yesterday. That doesn't mean that you take today off. You win tomorrow with today, not yesterday. You're only as good as your current performance. Most people say you're only as good as your last performance, but you're only as good as your current performance, right? So if you're feeling like under the weather or not really like performing at the highest degree right now, if your energy is low, get down, do some push-ups, drink some cold water, splash yourself with some cold water and get out of it. Get out of it and get into the opportunity, because I guarantee you this. This is the critical thinking that I use. Like it's a leadership mindset. While someone is having a terrible day, another person's having a phenomenal day. What's different? The perspective. The perspective. It's the same day. It's the same day. While somebody's being buried, another person is being born. It's perspective. It's really perspective. In some cultures, they wear white at funerals. It's perspective. Some people say nobody's buying. But hear this really quick, and I'm gonna let Bobby speak to this for a moment, because you sell the way you buy. You sell the way you buy. So if you're a little scary on the purchase, your clients are a little scary on the purchase. If you're trying to save and stave and save and secure away, bury the chestnuts, your clients probably feel the same way too. Your prospects are kind of like, they're giving you the same, how do you say, they're giving you they're feeding you the same excuses that you feed someone else. There's a statement. I forget the origin of the quote. But if you want to find the negativity in your life, look in the mirror. If you want to find the negative, if you want to find the thing that you don't like, I'm going to find the quote during the break. But if you want to find the thing, if you want to look the thing that you don't like in the face, find a mirror. And this is the hard reality, guys. And listen to me. Be very, very understanding of this. As I speak to you, I speak to myself. I'm giving you the same coaching that I give to myself right now. It's a different level of love. It's a different level of leadership. It's a different level of commitment. I do not let myself slip at all. So I won't allow you to do it either. Not on my watch.
Yeah. I was talking to someone recently about my children, watching my kids, right? And I told them that my children, just like any other kids, respond to the energy that the parental guider or guidance is providing. And I've realized that the same thing is true in life. Like if you show up to life timidly, life will give you, say, timid results. If you show up to life aggressively, life will give you aggressive results. They say risk and reward are very equivalent in many cases. However much risk you're willing to take, that's how much reward you're willing to get back. So before we go to the break, my question to you would be, what do you have in your life that you actively created, like you intentionally created? And what do you have in your life that just came about unintentionally? Like you did not ask for that. You didn't want that, but it's there. And the reason I say ask yourself that question is because Earl Nightingale said something once. He said, everyone's self-made, but only the successful will admit it. You know, so what we're doing is we're just simply sitting back and saying, okay, I've created this, but we got to be willing to admit the things that we've created so we can fix it.
That's a horrible. That's a rough one, right? You know, I know some people are like, "Wow, this is like a downer day." No, it's not. It's really not. This is an upward day. This is a focus day. This is a clarity day. This is a bringing you up to accountability day. That's what people need. They need accountability, right? So if I was your accountability partner, just imagine, just imagine what that transformation would look like. But I'm going to show you the perspective. Some people refer to this as hump day. For decades, I have looked at this as a pump day. I literally reframe everything. So when people are like, oh, it's cold outside, it's not. It's framing, it's conditioning. There are monks who sit in the snow and melt a circle around them. You have to control the narrative. You have to control the environment. If you don't control the environment and the circumstances, then the environment and the circumstances will control you. So whether or not you've dominated the first and the second quarter of the month of January, this is your opportunity to reset. This is your opportunity to take back control of your mind first, your life next, your finances, your body, the entire thing. No one is a victim of circumstances. You are the creator of your circumstances. We'll be right back. This is The Breakfast with the Brand. We didn't come to play with you. It's very important that you know yourself to the highest degree possible, because it's through knowing ourselves that we're able to know other people. You are the most important person in the room, and the better that you know yourself, the better that you're able to communicate to others. So you're not only playing the game knowing who you are, but you're also playing the game knowing who everyone else is, so that you're not playing blind.
He's extremely engaging with people. He has a fantastic smile. He's just very high energy person.
This is called leadership development. So we have to be independently knowledgeable and considerate to know who we are, so we can more effectively know who other people are. As the leader, it's your responsibility to allocate resources in the right places. If you don't know how to communicate effectively, you're losing the battle. I said Sean Ra'is. I'm proud. I said Sean Ra'is. Leadership is not the brand they made for us.
Listen, he brought fire, heat. He didn't hold back.
20 years down the line, what I could sell, why not serve first? Service over salary. Branding like a leader closes the gap for people who want branding. Speaking like a leader closes the gap for people who are nervous about speaking. If Steve Jobs would have speculated, we wouldn't have Apple.
He changed lives. He helped people open up their business and start their business.
We are the brand. Some people say, Sean, should I quit my job? Mentally, yes.
As a speaker too, to be able to learn from him and watch him and you know, game respects game. And I want to have that much game someday.
The right client, pay $500,000 for what you do. You have to be bold in your beliefs.
He has been an amazing asset to this event and a pleasure to work with. Very captivating, collaborative, worked very well with the audience.
I want to help you. Put a 0 behind your number, right?
The session was great. How he is online, virtually, he is even more phenomenal in person.
Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands.
The entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond.
Give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right, let's get into it, guys. All right, so we have a question. We have a question. Let me get into this. So I have a speaking question. When you are speaking on a panel on a specific subject and there is limited time frame, how do you begin? 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Do you use any of your brand story, or do you only tell who you are, what you do, and then go directly to the subject of the discussion? Okay, phenomenal. There's something that I teach in Speaking Like a Leader. In Speaking Like a Leader, I teach the rule of threes. And everybody knows this if they've been through Branded Like a Leader, or especially through Speaking Like a Leader. And this is breaking your story down into quarters, basically. Because what is 15 minutes? 15 minutes is basically 3 quarters. If you break it into 3 quarters, then you got 3 segments of 4 or 4 segments of 3. You know, we're going to do 12 minutes because you want to leave a few open for the Q&As, and you want to leave a little bit of time open for the pregnant pauses. So you don't want to speak too fast. You want to give your words the ability to have impact. But what you want to do is you want to always, always, always tell a brief story, ever so brief, to introduce the emotion into the environment. When someone brings you on as a panelist, or you have an ability to tell a story, you always want to wake people up and bring them in. Stories draw people in. So first segment, I would tell a story. Second segment, I would almost thank you for the question, and then give the question relevance. Then solve the question within the third quarter, the third frame. And then within the fourth frame, I would tell people who I am and what I do, because you always close with the call to action. That's my answer. So open with the story, give the environment and the questioner, or the person who asked the question, give them credibility, right? And then in the third, give the solution, provide the solution. So this would be around minute 6 to 9. And then from 9 to 12, call to action, and still leave time for any Q&A that can take place. Just give it time to let the power of your words set in. You can see me on panels. It's on YouTube. I always speak with the people who are next to me on the panel. I give respect to the people who are on the panel. I do this after I'm done. I don't just jump off saying, thank you so much for having me here, or, oh my God, what this person said was absolutely phenomenal. I start with the story, because you always want to bring people into it emotionally. Then you want to give credibility to the question. If you have any statistical relevance to the question, you give statistical relevance to the question and why it's impactful. That's acknowledging the person who asked you the question, or acknowledging the validity of the question, and then providing the solution. Providing the solution. In writing, they call it restating the problem. Restating the problem, giving the problem definition and clarity. And then in the third half, in the third quarter of your segment, your moment on the panel, your 15 minutes to speak, you would give the solution. Give the solution. And then always, 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 if you're speaking ever, close with a call to action. Don't open up with the call to action, because then if you tell the story, they're going to forget who you are, or forget why you came, or forget what the call to action was. So you always end with the call to action.
Yeah, this is a great point as I think about my most recent speaking engagement as we open up the new year. So that was exciting for me. I was able to do a guest speaker position for a organization in New York that was serving veteran-owned businesses. And during this experience, how I had about 30 minutes. And again, I've gone through Speaking Like a Leader, so I know about the charismatic cliffhanger. I know about the driver. I know about some things that, you just have to unpack by going through the course itself. So for me, however, I was able to connect with the audience and do it in such a way that I could feel them and they could feel me. So what I would say, just to this point, because Sean's obviously had tons and tons of experience with speaking in front of live crowds. my experience has only been on the Zoom so far and in different rooms in that way. So I want to share something from my personal experience as I start getting into more rooms, what the Zoom experience was like actually talking to squares, because it can be very interesting. So as you talk to the squares and you can't really feel the energy in the room, the story that I opened up with allowed me to kind of see how people were sitting. You know, if they were sitting like this, did my story straighten them up? If they were sitting like this, sitting back, did my story pull them forward to let me know that they're being drawn in? So I would say, you know, also as you're breaking these things down into quarters, the more you do it and the more you pay attention to the people, you will start to see kind of telltale signs and cues that people are being brought into the story. And when you bring them in and then you start weaving again, that's speaking like a leader. But when you can weave that story properly, you'll start to see that you can just really drop. It's almost like a seed. And then you allow that seed to germinate in water as you speak. So maybe that will help somebody else out there that is getting into speaking, that is serious about speaking and is starting on the Zoom, because in today's landscape, a lot of people start on the Zoom as they get into the room. It's not, you know, what it used to be, so to speak.
It definitely is not. So a lot of people, so Zoom exploded during the pandemic. Before that, it was an opportunity, but it was like, it wasn't as relevant, hardly, nor was the valuation of that company as huge as it is now, right? So Zoom became extremely relevant during the pandemic. So it's still really a new thing. But the more you can be transparent, authentic, vulnerable, and this ties into the next question. Let me just go into that and I'll add a little bit more. How do you work through telling your story when it's still painful? Reality moment in coaching, being a parent that lost a child, realized that my pain has me disassociate with the group. How do I begin to work through the pain and begin telling the story? Okay, first, very sorry for your loss. I acknowledge that 1000% and give that honor and space. However, I'm of the mindset that anything that was given to me was given to fuel me. And let me tell you a story to make it a reality. On my website in the About page, you'll hear or you'll read, and most people who know my story know that around the age of 13, 14, I lost a very near and dear friend of mine. We had the same name. And it was the first person that I had ever seen gunned down in Harlem. And it was very, very painful, very traumatic. There was no money for a burial. We stopped cars after school to collect funds and pennies and quarters as people drove down 145th Street to go to the Bronx or whatever. We would stop cars in the street, kids 14, 13, to collect money to help the mother bury her child, whose name happened to be Sean. And a couple of days after that, as traumatic as that was, just imagine how traumatic that was. And a couple of days after that, I woke up to go to school. And as I walked into school, I look across the street and there was a Pioneer store Pioneer on 145th Street between 7th and Lenox, for anyone who knows the area. I looked across the street and I saw my name on the wall. My name. Now we had, it was a different spelling, but it was my name on the wall. And everybody from the inner city knows that if you're, what names on the wall represent death, the end of life. So every day I had to walk past my own name. Is that painful? Definitely. Is it still painful? Definitely. Pain doesn't stop. But we get to choose how we interact with the pain. So the pain could tell me, and the trauma could tell me not to tell the story or to run from the pain or to medicate, self-medicate because of the pain. Or, and this might be something that some people are dealing with right now, self-medication. There's many ways to do it. There's many ways to self-medicate. There's many ways to allow something to impact you negatively. However, I decided that it wasn't going to be a positive experience for me or anyone else if I chose to self-medicate or chose to allow it to continue to negatively impact me. And I chose to change the frame of reference. So it became something that I used to fuel me so that it could impact others positively. So what I did, Tia, and anyone else who's thinking about this, is I stopped thinking about myself and dwelling in the emotion. And I allowed it to become a motive for me to help other people, like I'm doing right now. So I got out of myself and I got into everyone else. I turned the pain into service, an act of selfless service. When you do this, the pain, it won't leave, it won't become irrelevant, but what it will do is it will allow someone else to have gain and to learn from it. And I think ultimately we're alchemists. I think we have the ability to turn base materials into gold if we so choose. I believe that we have the ability through our mind to turn something that's negative into something positive. And I think the things that could destroy us, if we allow it to, could actually be used to bring life to others if we so choose to. So my question at that point becomes, why wouldn't you choose to give life as opposed to sitting and suffering in your home?
Wow. Wow. Man, as I think about a reframe that I had to do recently, I think about the emotions that I experienced. And I just want to share this brief emotional aspect of it without, too many details, to just help whoever is experiencing this, because we all have these emotions, right? But one thing that I noticed was that when we think about all that we've done, all that we've given, all that we've sacrificed, and we try to move forward thinking about ourselves, we tend to get caught up in what no one else did for us, right? So this could be your market, this could be your family, this could be your parents, this could be your environment. The moment we start to view what is going on in our world through what we did for others and what they didn't do for us, it just really negative, it brings up negative emotions, right? And what I've learned is a little bit better, because we all have emotions, positive and negative, like there's no getting around them. What I've noticed, however, is if you can find out how to take some form of accountability, and sometimes, in certain instances, you just can't. It's like, I don't know how I can take accountability for this. But if you can find a way to say, you know what, this is what I could have done, or this is what I can do today, this is what I am going to try to do in the future, I found that that empowers you to move forward. That's one of the biggest things that I found is just hard to deal with emotions, is emotions get us locked into a loop of past experiences, or a loop of pain, a loop of what I did or didn't do that paralyzes us, when what we really need to do is figure out how to move forward. And when we can find this way of moving forward, something magical happens. And that's all I can really say, because I'm actively going through something myself, full transparency, but it's business. It's like, it's a part of the development. And it's like, every time I find myself trapped in the emotion, I get stuck. I feel paralyzed. I'm like, okay, I cannot move. But every time I say, okay, what can I control right now? What can I do today? What can I take ownership of? I find my locus of control expanding. I find hope appearing and emerging, and I find myself taking the next logical step. And sometimes that's all you can do, is take the next logical step.
Very good. Very good. So think to yourself, what is your next logical step? Right? If you're going through something, if you're struggling with something, if something bad has happened, which it has and it will and it always does, how can we convert that base material into precious metal? How can we turn that base material into precious metal? And one of the things that I like to say is turn your drama and trauma into commas. Turn your drama and trauma into commas. This is what we did, and this is what we teach. This is what I literally did. I went live on Facebook and told my story. And here we are. Fast forward just a couple of years. Your story, the most painful story that you think you have, is actually the most powerful story that you actually have. It's the most powerful. Many times we're not successful because we're not telling the parts of ourselves that bring us pain. We're running from our own pain, and through running from our own pain, instead of going through it and being transformed, they say, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind, from perceiving something differently. Instead of going through the pain and being transformed as a result, we run from the pain and run from the transformation, but it's the reality. And at some point we have to face it. This is the way, this is the mechanism or the vehicle that I use to help people to transform their situation and turn their drama and trauma into commas. It's called speaking like a leader. If you notice, all of the leaders in politics, world, geopolitical realms, they all tell their story. If you think of the best speakers that you've ever heard, from Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas, Les Brown, Grant Cardone, myself, we all tell our story. And we lead with the story. So if you find yourself unable to lead with the story, and instead the story is feeding on you, then speaking like a leader would probably be a good option for you to be able to turn that base material into precious metal and go ahead and get some impact for it. So watch how this goes, guys. And this is a process. You're in a coaching. This is like I'm coaching you right now, and you're inside of a process. Coaching is a future-focused, goal and action-oriented process. There's a reason why I say education, experience, and then expertise. Because education comes first, and it's the hard thing. It's the hard thing that people don't want to do. Get the education. So then they can have the experience. If you're uneducated, then the experience is brutality. You're not really able to defend yourself, and you're just going through something instead of rising up to something. So experience comes before the education comes before the experience. And then as you take the education and you add it to the experience, you become an expert. So that's how the education, experience, and expertise framework was put together. Now look at the flip side. Most of you want more money, more time, more freedom. But before you can do that, you have to have impact first. First, you have to have impact. You have to touch people. You have to change, be able to change lives, be able to turn other people's base materials into precious metals. Help someone else through the pain. That's how you get through it, Tia and everyone else. You help someone else. Through service, we are saved. Service is our salvation. What I'm doing right now is a cleansing, not just for me, or not just for you, but for me first. I was speaking on my sales training earlier this morning, and I said, where do you guys think I would be here if you weren't here? Where do you think I would be if you weren't here? I would be somewhere speaking right now. Guaranteed. And I told the people on the sales training, where do you think I would be if you weren't here? If you weren't here, I would be training. I would be right here doing what I'm doing, because that's me. So when you help people, when you speak your truth, when you help someone else, you're helping them, but it's more of a self-help process. The coach is coached through coaching. The consultant is consulted through consulting. The speaker is spoken to through speaking. The closer is edified and closed through closing. And if you can't do this, if you refuse to do this, it will not change the fact that at some point you're going to have to come to grips with this and go through it. So this is what we teach in Speaking Like a Leader. This is what we built the business on: communication, effective communication, and being transparent and helping others, and helping ourselves through the helping of others. Again, salvation comes through service and being selfless. And everyone has it. You're not alone. You know, I again can appreciate the gravity of the situation and the relevance, but you're not alone. But you won't know that you're not alone until you share your story and someone else says, me too. I went through that too. And then you have community. Do you understand? You don't have community when you keep it to yourself because no one knows what you've been through. And everybody thinks that their burden is the heaviest. That's the words of the great Bob Marley. He said, every man thinks his burden is the heaviest, but it's really not. The key is to communicate it to others so that a community can wrap itself around you. Like your community is waiting for you guys. Your community is waiting for you, but they don't know that you exist. And this is why you need visibility in order to get the credibility, in order to get the profitability. Most people want the last thing first. They want to reverse it. They want to become an expert without the education and the experience. It will never happen. They want the independence without the impact and the income. It will never happen. They want the profitability without the visibility and the credibility. And it just will never happen. Things have to go in the proper order. So we have to remove ourselves from ourselves and use what we've been through ourselves for the salvation of others. And then all of those things that we want and all of those things that we desire will be added to us. This is the Breakfast with the Brand. We'll be right back. Phenomenal, phenomenal question. Thank you for being transparent. Business is like a game of chess. It's not checkers. If you don't know how to lead with a personal brand, then you're losing the battle.
Everything about Sean's talk was fantastic. I mean, I got so much from it.
So he was really bringing fire and passion and just love and spirit to let everybody else know how do you become a leader amongst the leaders.
You hold the key in your hand. There is more power in this phone than there was that took the first man to the moon.
His energy, his dynamic information, gave a really great presentation.
I didn't ask for any money. I didn't have an offer. I had a heart to help people and meet them where they were at and find their need and fulfill it.
Sean is the bomb.
I don't talk theory. I don't talk hyperbole. I don't talk opinion. Nothing I talk is anything but evidence-based.
During the G-Circle retreat in Atlanta, I had the pleasure and the honor of listening to Mr. Sean Raiz. He will not only impact your organization, but he will elevate your team to another level.
When you change you, when you put you into the equation, the whole system is different. I guarantee you, you got the right thing. You are the right person. If you can present yourself in the best way possible, there's no negotiation.
His energy is infectious, and I have so many takeaways from the presentation that I can't wait to get started and implement them today to see the result.
Very good. Very good. And there was another question added to the end of that about mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, and then getting stuck, right? Getting stuck. The key to getting unstuck is to be of service. The key to getting unstuck is to be of service. Throw yourself into service. And that's to everyone. Throw yourself into service. So I can get stuck. I used to get stuck, but I'm in such of a service mode all of the time that I can't get stuck for the salvation of others. Think about it. If someone needs resuscitation, if someone's needing help, and you're a first responder and you're qualified, you don't think, you just do. You stop thinking and you just respond, and you do what's needed to be done in the moment, in the heat of the moment. You have to keep yourself in the heat of the moment, in the service component. When we think, we get stuck. When we respond, We become reactive. In a life, Joel asked the question, phenomenal morning, brother. He says, in a life full of stories containing pain, failure, and success, how do you decide at a moment's notice which story to tell for relevancy? I love this question. There's something called intuition. Intuition. And this is why the key components, that I'm going to have to tell a little bit of a story for this. The key components, and this is the factors, the key factors in developing personal brand leadership, which is a new leadership style that I am responsible for creating out of need. Out of need. It took me 3 years to 4 years to realize this. However, in personal branding, you have to become self-aware. You have to become self-aware. Then you have to become self-regulated. You have to understand, okay, my brand has to interact with other people, so I have to regulate the way my brand communicates. There's emotional intelligence. So think about the question that was just asked and the pain that was caused from it. I had to respond in a way that acknowledged the emotion and was intelligent and could affect the forward movement, right? And then transparency, or what we call authenticity, being authentic, telling my story. Now, in leadership development, because I've gone through the deep-seated educational process of learning, like I have a master's degree in leadership, this is the key. I found that they were the same things. Self-awareness is the first key to leadership development. And then self-regulation, knowing who you're speaking to, not using a cookie cutter, because I couldn't answer the question before hers the way I did the first one. Two different people, two different situations. So you have to be you have to regulate yourself. Emotional intelligence, knowing when to say what and what to say how. Very important, being intuitive and being sensitive. And then authenticity, being true to myself at the same time and giving the required medication, even though I know it might be a little bit painful. It has to be in order to really fix something. So Joel, to answer your question, the way you decide at a moment's notice is being so in tune with yourself, so self-aware, trusting yourself to regulate with the right story, having a heightened sense of emotional intelligence and being authentic is the way you tell at a moment's notice. You just feel it. When you throw yourself into service and you are given to service consistently, the response will come naturally. You will not have to premeditate. This is not scripted. When I step on a stage, it is not scripted. When I speak to you authentically right now, it is not scripted. We do not record the podcast and then launch it on time, while we're somewhere else doing something else. And this is why I can respond to you authentically at a moment's notice, whereas many people will not take the risk. But this is the key. Bobby said it before. When you don't take the risk, you don't get the reward. They see it as a potential default. Oh, something could go wrong if we go live for real. If we really go live, something could go wrong. Something could fall. Someone could ask a question that I don't feel comfortable answering. People are going to ask questions that you're not going to feel comfortable answering. And you're going to be wrong sometimes, but you learn through the failings. You learn through the iterations of failure and success. This is called a process. And the real process is called trust. Trust, you have to be able to trust yourself. And you learn to trust yourself through that experience piece. That's the only way you get to the expert part, Joel, and everyone else. You get the education and then you throw yourself into the service so that you can get the experience. And if you don't have the experience, you can have all the education in the world. If you don't have the experience, you are not an expert and you never will be one.
I think this is very interesting because it's the business system, like in real time. Like there's so much that's happening right now that I kind of want to help bring all of this into perspective. The question today started with speaking. What do I do in this space? And what I'd like to address is there are 3 systems. And the reason I think this is so important and such a very powerful topic to shed some light on is because the world is changing. You know, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, then you still got some working years ahead of you. If you're in your 20s or 18, you still got working years ahead of you. And the workforce is changing, and speaking is a very real asset now that is almost, in my opinion, equivalent to what the master's degree or bachelor's degree used to be. Like, just to make money, you needed to have a bachelor's, right? Just to make real money, you needed to have that master's back in the day. Now I believe that speaking, just to make decent money as a business owner, you need to be able to communicate, because everything's online, everything is social media, everything is videos. So if you can't communicate, it's almost like you don't have that piece of paper. But let's go a little bit deeper into this piece because it's so relevant. So when we think about business systems, you've got 3 ways. You know, you can start a business normally. You can create the system yourself, build it yourself. You can purchase a franchise, buy the franchise itself, or you can become part of a multi-level marketing organization, which means the business is already created and you're just, you know, adding yourself to it, and you're building on top of a system that already exists. If you decide to build your own system, then speaking is one of the core components of that system, because it covers so many different things. It covers marketing, it covers sales, it covers closing, it covers leadership, it covers team building, because you have to speak in order to do all of those things to some degree. So I just think that when you start to realize how powerful speaking is in business and business development and system development, you realize that there's no getting around it. So I definitely want everyone to think about Warren Buffett's words when he said, one of the best investments I made was in speaking. And I would say, I agree. One of the best investments I made was going through Sean Rais's Speaking Like a Leader course and every other course that he has laid out for me personally, because each of them helped me become a better speaker. And my last caveat is this. I think that most people see speaking at the surface and don't really see it for its depth. And at its depth, it's communication. But at the surface, it's tonality and inflection and rhythm and rhyme. But at its core, I think speaking is the ability to communicate clearly and drive actions based on effective communication.
Beautiful. Wow. Very well said. Very well said. Bobby's a phenomenal communicator, guys, right? And you have to become one. You won't be able to close deals if you can't speak. You will not be effective at selling anything if you can't communicate. You just won't. I have another saying: if you can't speak, you can't eat. And if you can't speak, you will always be looking for someone else to provide for you, because you have to be able to effectively communicate. If you can't speak, then you work for other people who can speak until you learn how to speak. Now, we have another question here, which is very good, but we're at the end of the show. So what I'd like for you to do, Lawana, is hold on to this question. Hold on to this question. So she says, I would like to hear you speak to the audience about expertise. She says, there are so many who are parroting what they are picking up from Google University. Sure know a lot about that. She says, but they lack lived experience and application of what they profess to have expertise in. I agree, 1000%. And I can't wait until tomorrow to answer that question. So highlight it, take a copy of it, and let's begin the show tomorrow with that question. This is the Breakfast with the Brand. I hope you've learned a lot today. I know you have if you've paid attention. Watch this over and over again to kind of get the salient points that might be under the first time hearing it, because there's multiple underlying messages in everything that we say. You have to sometimes unweave the woven tapestry to get to the inner core, the inner time, the deeper lesson in the learning. Guys, we'll be in the same place, same time tomorrow. Phenomenal questions. Thank you for them. Thank you for them. And we're going to answer that question that came up when we get back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. This is your Breakfast with the Brand. Let's grow.